Welcome back to Found Footage Friday. We're sticking to it for now.
For now. We'll see.
No. We're going to continue.
We will.
Home movie.
Yep.
Dropped on Shudder. We had a different movie picked, but then I threw on Shudder to put that other movie on. And I saw this was like the first thing, and I was like, oh yeah. I haven't seen this movie in over 10 years. I remember liking it, but remembering little, except for that it dealt with like evil kids. And that was like all I'd remembered. So I was like, oh, this could be a quick one and a good one, right? Because it's only 76 minutes long. And it was something I haven't seen in forever, and it was something new to her.
Yeah.
So,
Pretty much.
let's discuss it.
All right.
Shallst we?
We shall.
What'd you think?
I really liked it. I thought it was very creepy, very unsettling. I was kind of like, what the fuck is happening for part of the film? I had theories, and because I don't know. I think that the setup is really great for like the evil children aspect. I think that there's a lot that you can kind of like assume that it might be, like based on the beginning and like the opening and everything. But I really like the performances from everybody. I think that the family, like the husband and wife's like chemistry and dynamic felt really real to me. The way they talked to each other was really believable, and they were both very likable in their own ways. And the kids were really, really creepy. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So if you are a found footage fan, I'm assuming you're watching this because you are. Definitely a recommendation if you have not seen it. And if you haven't, you can shut it off here because from now on it will be spoilers. All right. So this opens with Halloween because this is told through different holidays. And the mom is dressed like the Bride of Frankenstein. And we were very surprised because neither of us is uber familiar with any of the classic Universal monster movies. It's not my personal thing. So I've never really watched many of them. And if I have, I barely remember them. But we were watching some of them. We were going to do them for Monster Mondays. But that never happened. Honestly, we watch a lot of shit for the channel that doesn't get reviewed sometimes. You guys think we do a lot of reviews? Oh my god, we watch so much extra shit that we never even talk about.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we were really surprised when we watched Bride of Frankenstein that the bride of Frankenstein, you know, the titular character, is in the movie for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, at the very end.
I
I was really shocked, and then like from what we can tell, she's not in any of the other movies.
Oh, I have no idea, but all I can say...
we looked it up for some reason, but maybe we didn't. But yeah, for her to only be 2 minutes...
She's so iconic.
Yeah, and to be so iconic, like instantly recognizable. People absolutely love her. Yeah. Is she in the other movies? I don't know. Now I'm wondering if she's like a main character in other films.
Never seen past Bride, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, she's pretty. And her look is cool, right? Like, I get the appeal, but it was shocking that she's in it for so little. Anyways, back to this movie. I just had to bring that up because we didn't get to talk about Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And that was one of my notes for sure on that. And since it was shown here, I thought I'd talk about it. The kids are just weird from the jump, right?
Oh my gosh.
Which... They could have went a couple different ways with this. They could have went the route of like they were normal. Then something happened. And then they were weird. And then they thought it was that thing. And then there was this... Because there is a fight in this, you know, of religion versus science. And that's a pretty prominent aspect of the film for sure. And... I would have definitely liked to have seen that explored a little bit more. I think that extra 15 minutes that would have brought this up to an hour and a half would have been good for this movie. they could have started it, but I kind of like that they went this way where the kids are just off, right? Because she's like
she's a child psychiatrist.
Yeah.
I like
which is ironic.
Yeah, right? It is, of course. Well, and I wanted to say what you're talking about. I do like that they start with like the children being weird from the beginning, because that's what I was meaning earlier when I was like, I feel like there were so many different angles that it could have been. Like, I was really thinking that they were kidnapped, that like the kids were being forced to pretend to be their children.
Yeah.
That's what I thought for a lot of the film. And, you know, obviously, like, there's all these other elements, like it could be demonic possession, and that's what I was going to say about this child psychiatrist thing, and then the fact that he's a pastor. I like that it's like woman of science, man of faith, kind of like, you know, two opposing viewpoints.
Yeah.
And ways of approaching mental illness.
Yeah, but there's just not enough infighting about it. Right, there's not enough like your science can't freaking solve everything, and it's like, well, your religion isn't science, and you know you're just guessworking, and then that like puts a strain on their relationship because one doesn't respect the other one's beliefs, and I don't know, that I just feel like that could have been used to add more drama, more tension, and more story.
For me, it didn't bother me that they weren't fighting about it as much, because it just seemed like they were such a solid couple, and that they were like doing everything they could to help their kids in general.
Yeah.
And to like give their kids like a normal and healthy and happy, like, you know, family environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like fine that they weren't fighting, and I just like that it kind of starts coming out like as the film progresses, and as they get more stressed, they're both looking towards their own separate things for like an explanation. Obviously, she's trying to help them with their, with pharmaceuticals and science, and then he starts praying more and kind of like, exploring exorcism and stuff. So
yeah.
But I see what you're saying though. I think that if they had fought more, it definitely would have made a lot more drama. And
this definitely isn't just something that started happening. Right, it's like they moved out into kind of the middle of nowhere to get their kids away.
It was happening, yeah.
Right, they've been there for 6 months, and she is kind of documenting her progress with him. Now, there are things that are amended here, which is kind of interesting as far as like what the choice is, and what is the missing footage, right? So, like the Rorschach test, for instance, like we just kind of fast forward through his answers, and I'm like, why? Why fast forward through his answers? The only explanation I can come up with is for an artistic reason, is that the kids only talk once they're better, but then but my counter argument to that is that they also talk when they're evil again, and obviously they were never not evil.
I was gonna say, I think that they are like excited because they've been pre-planning this day.
But also, like, they never talk in it up until that point outside of their gibberish talk. So, like, were they saving their voices, their normal voices, or like English voices? For when they're happy? Is that the only artistic reason for why they fast forward through him answering what those Rorschach answers are? Because I would have thought it would have been very interesting to hear his responses to each.
Sure. I mean, yeah, it would have been. I think that, like hearing their voices for when the audience thinks that they've, recovered. I like that, because them not speaking except for that like weird talk, it just adds to the creepy factor. Like, they're just so weird.
Sure.
And the silence is very disturbing. But I mean, like hearing his responses, but I think that like given the situation at this point in the film, like you're just like, he's saying he sees like freaking bodies and like death and like, evil stuff in there.
So, follow-up question then for that, because I agree. I think it's just to, as I had already stated, it's there just to keep their voices for when they're good. So the follow-up question is, then why even do the Rorschach thing at all? What's the point of it in the film? Like, if she doesn't, like, go through his answers, because you don't have to show it, right? You can fast forward through it, and then I would have the answer for if she was, like, giving her results. Like, he said this was this, or whatever, right? Or analyzing it after and being like, well, you know, that was fucking weird. And obviously he's dealing with whatever, right? If she was giving some account, if she was documenting it and relaying some kind of diagnosis or something. But to just be like, we're going to do a Rorschach test, fast forward through it, then she kind of sits at the camera and is just like, and then it just cuts away. It's like...
Well, she does say that she is... it's either that she... I don't know if she says it there, that she's going to be taking a class on, like, pharmaceuticals, or that she's, like...
I think it might be there.
I think that's when she says it, so I think that the point...
But why... Okay, go ahead.
Well, I just, like... So the scene right before is the father with Emily, with the daughter.
Yeah.
And they're having a moment, and then she comes to take the camera because she wants to record Jack. So I feel like it just shows... like having those two scenes back to back. It's both parents trying to connect with their kids. She's being very like kind and like genuine with him, being like, just tell me what you see and everything. And then the fact that it fast forwards through it and we just get her like I have to start looking into like chemicals to help him because it's like he's so messed up. Like, to me, I think that's fine, and I think it works to show like that it's just getting to the point where it's like, what else can you do?
She could have shown him the images, and he could have wrote his answers down.
Sure.
And she could have like picked it up and showed it to the camera. The picture and the you know, at the same time.
That would have been cool.
Like,
yeah.
Just for proof for because he's not talking out loud.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. Just to kind of get some insight to why, because at this point we already know there's something wrong. We already know that being a psychologist, that she is going to prescribe some kind of drug, right? Like, she, obviously something is wrong, right? So like this Rorschach test and her being like, I got to get him on drugs. It's like, that's all implied anyway. We already knew that that's the avenue she would explore. So I don't know. I just feel like it would have added something to it to know what was said. The choice to fast forward it, I feel like it's only used for what we said. And it's, I guess it's just more of my curiosity than anything, being like, there's ways around that without them speaking, so that we can get a little more insight into what he's thinking.
It also fits with the aesthetic of the film too, which is something I actually really like, the way that there's rewinds and fast forwards and stuff in other places. So,
but what do you think those are? What is that? Why there's certain scenes they rewind and you're like, why are they rewinding this?
I mean, it just feels like, because I guess it's like, who's rewinding it? Is it the kids rewinding? Like, they're watching it again? Because, like, when they have, like, you know, when the dad is saying, like, I'm sorry, like, he's broken down, and it's just, like, it rewinds and, like, repeats him, like, saying, I'm sorry multiple times. I mean, yeah, it could be them, like, you know, messing around with these. Because it does seem to be, like, on weird scenes. You know, like, stuff that's kind of unusual. And the glitching happens, too, on... You know, like when the cat is found crucified and the toad and everything, it like kind of cuts off. But, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I can't really come up with an in-universe explanation because the cops are like coming to arrest him in the morning, right? I think they're supposed to take him in, but when they're not there in the morning, they're coming to arrest them. And these kids definitely got caught. So like, they're not like watching this tape. I guess you could say after they killed him, we're viewing their viewing.
Maybe,
right?
yeah.
Whatever footage is on the camera, they're watching
and
rewinding certain parts that they want to watch again.
Yeah.
And we're seeing we're seeing the film through their rewatch before they go to jail.
Sure. I like that idea. Yeah.
I mean, it's the only thing that makes any sense to me.
Well, yeah, otherwise I think it's just it's an aesthetic choice for the film.
Yeah.
If that's, you know, if there's no in-universe reason, it's just for the look of it. But I like it either way.
Yeah. So, okay. Lots of things to talk about here. But they have... He reads them some fairy tales or he reads them a fairy tale about a dragon. Which going back to your point, I do like the tactics in this movie to try to get your brain to go a few different places. Is it supernatural? Are these kids theirs? You know, they're out in the middle of nowhere. She's a child psychologist. Maybe she freaking, stole some kids and is like, all sorts of different things, right? Like, they give you a bunch of different, like, hints at certain things, but they have plausible deniability about everything, right? Which is cool because of how they do certain scenes where you're like, is that supernatural? Creepy? Right? There's the man in the closet. Sure. There's them disappearing from the chair.
Yeah.
There's this one I do not have an explanation for, so I'm not exactly sure what the implication is here, because when they disappear from the chair, they're kids. I guess they could be fast enough. I don't know how the hell they got out of the room without making a noise, but I guess, turn off my brain a little bit there and be like, maybe they got out of the room without being seen. But it's 1
so
second.
fast.
They're like there. He goes boom, boom, gone, no noise. If you were to run out of the room that fast, you'd make noise. But as I said, that one, maybe. But it's the shade raising on its own. I don't have an answer for that one.
I thought she was like holding the cord and
maybe
says it and she like lets it go.
Really? Okay. That's possible.
What I thought.
That's possible. It didn't look like that, but it is lower quality film on purpose, right? It's found footage. So it's possible she was holding something and let it go and it dropped. That's totally possible. That's not how, but it raised. Right? It was closed.
Right.
And then it just immediately shot up.
Yeah. But there's blinds like that like if you are pulling down on it, like the tension.
I'd have to look at the scene again, but I'm oh man. Now that you said it, I like it. I mean, it would answer that, because if she's not, which I didn't see anything. So if I'm right, I got no explanation for that other than it's a total coincidence. And it just so happened the mechanism let go at that moment and it went up because it broke or something, which is possible, right? So it's not impossible. It's insanely unlikely. The probability is 1,000,000,000 to 1 kind of thing, but it's possible. So it's not inexplainable. It's just too convenient to be like, is that supernatural? Right? Is there a man in the closet? Right? Are they being possessed by the devil?
Yeah.
Or demons or something? Because the movie does, it loves to play around with that. Because she gives him drugs, and basically within that same time frame, he exorcises them. And then they're back to normal. Yeah. And the wife's like, the drugs worked. And then you're sitting there like, did they? Or is it the exorcism? Yeah. Did he drive out the demon because of the exorcism? Or did the drugs work?
Right.
Right? And I love that. Obviously, the answer is neither, because they're still fucking evil, crazy kids, unless they had a demonic relapse.
I know, yeah.
Where they became possessed again.
I don't know, yeah. There's so many scenes, when they wake up in bed, covered in bite marks.
Dude.
And that was really creepy.
But those bite marks are clearly from children.
Yeah, I mean, that was something we were talking about. You could definitely measure, the bite of your husband to those. But the whole situation for that, the setup to it is so creepy. Because, he's in bed with them. And this is after she's, talking about how he had a traumatic childhood. And, traumatized or, abused children are more likely to abuse their children. So you're like, oh, my God, is he, messing around? And truthfully, in the beginning, there's many times where I was like, he's so, outgoing and, charming. But I was, unsure. And it's entirely because of how the kids act around him. Where they're, not returning that energy. So you're just like...
Yeah.
Is he crazy and they're afraid of him? And I was very on the fence with it for a long time, and I really liked that though, because it made me so unsure of what was gonna happen. But that scene with the bite marks, and then when she's just who's biting my children, I'm like, oh no, that's awful.
And in the end, it's still not 100% clear on, you can't say for definite unless you want to go off your own beliefs. But like other than that, within the film's logic, it could be that they're crazy, or it could be that they were possessed.
Yeah, it's
right?
still ambiguous, which is really cool. Because I don't know. I don't have either. I think it could be both.
Yeah.
It could be either one.
If it is that they're mentally unwell, mom's medication sucks.
Well, yeah, but I mean...
it's crazy to me that they were cunning enough to act a certain way up until mom gives them drugs and dad does an exorcism, and then they're like, all right, we got to act happy now. Right?
Well,
we got to play because they do everything in unison.
It's totally possible that they weren't even taking their medicine, too. Like, that they found a way to, like, pretend to take it, you know? Like,
there's no way that she's not giving 10-year-olds their medicine and making sure they're taking it.
Yeah.
There's no way she's, like, letting them take their own medication, especially when they're that disturbed. I don't think that.
I just think that maybe they were, like, throwing it up or, like, you know, trying
it's
to
possible.
do... But, I mean,
it's
it is, like... And also, like, if they were, I mean, you know, obviously not everybody who has antisocial personality, like, disorders are intelligent, but, like, if they were, like, so intelligent to be able to hide it, like, it's just kind of even scarier to think that, you know, they're so young, but they're so evil, and so, like, consciously evil, too, but... You know, if it is a mental disorder, it's like they also don't feel things the way that, like, normal people feel things, so they don't even have, like, a guilty conscience over anything.
Another piece of information that is supposed to lean you in the camp of supernatural is that they are twins born on Halloween.
Oh yeah, I liked that. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's like, they're just trying to be like, well, maybe
they're evil twins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, which... That reminds me of something like Bloody Birthday, which, did I show you Bloody Birthday with? No? Okay. But yeah, like the kids born on the same moon or whatever garbage somehow has an effect like that, or they're killers or some nonsense. But as far as the fairy tales go, I didn't even go off on that, but like, he tells them this dragon story, and then, you know, it has this grim ending, and the mom's all like, well, that was inappropriate and this and that, and it's like, it is interesting and funny to me, actually genuinely funny to me, like how, and this is more of an American thing for sure, but the evolution of fairy tales to children, and honestly to me, this is some of the evidence and reasons for why kids are the way that they are these days. It's like every kid gets a trophy. Every story has a happy ending. Like, that kind of stuff, I don't think that's good for your kid's brain. Like, I know you want to try to protect your kid and you want to, like, fill their heads with happy dreams and rainbows and excitement and everything's perfect, but everything isn't perfect. And there's grim fairy tales and stuff like that, you know, they're allegories. As the dad says, it's an allegory, right? Like, there's meaning in some of these stories. It's to teach them things, right? It's to, as he says in this, like, this is to teach them not to talk to strangers, which, of course, as I was trying to get at earlier, before I went off on a different rant, and this is like a side rant within my other rant, is when Kaylee was talking about them having kidnapped them. Yeah. This kind of adds to that, like, don't trust strangers like us, remember?
Yeah, I know.
Right? And then when he, like, brought ice creams home, you're like, did a witness them and he killed the ice cream man and took his ice cream and brought it to the kids to hide the fact that they're, you know, hiding out, right, in the middle of the woods with stolen children, because there'd probably be, you know, a bolo out on these, you know, Amber Alert kids with those guys' face in town, and if some ice cream man came across them, especially an ice cream man who deals with kids all day. I'm
Yeah.
sure like he's definitely given an Amber Alert.
Right.
Like those are the kinds of people you definitely want to give. Like if you see these kids, you deal with kids all day. It kind of adds that to like, maybe you killed that ice cream man to shut him up, right? So that adds to that. But getting back to the point is like, it is super, super interesting to me because like in other countries, they still tell like the grimmer fairy tales. And America loves to pretend everything's hunky-dory.
Yeah.
As we like bomb everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking hypocrites. Oh, happy story. Yeah, it's happy ending here.
Right. But not other places.
But not other places that we go. But I don't know. I just found that fascinating because he actually tells them like this morality allegory type of story. Mm-hmm. And the mom's like, that's inappropriate. And it's like, is it? Why do we tell kids such bullshit stories? Like, and then he lived happily ever after. Like, I think it's good to mix it up. I think it's good to have one that's like, things work out, right? And then one where it doesn't. So that kids understand that not everything always works out. That sometimes, and that adds tension to the story. This is why your movies should have a happy ending one time, and the next one should be like not. So that you go, that something has stakes. So you watch it and you're like, shit, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe it's gonna end bad. Maybe it's gonna end good. And that's what adds to the excitement. And when it goes well, you're like, yes. And then when it goes bad, you're like, fuck. And that's cool. And I think that's really good for kids to understand young. Like, not everything always is perfect in the end.
Yeah, I think in the context of this movie, though, she thinks it's inappropriate because their kids already have
they're
problems.
fucked up.
So, like, he
That's
doesn't
fair.
need to be telling them
That's fair.
the grim fairy tales.
They need a little
like,
more
with regular
Cinderella.
Children, like, yeah, it's good to have some balance and, like, a little bit of reality, you know?
I sit corrected. On this particular instance, for sure, these kids could deal with a little bit more happy. I would not show these kids horror movies.
No.
You know, I'd be showing them nothing but like Disney movies, really uplifting, nice, sweet
Pixar,
things. Yeah. They're like, no. You know, you can't handle this shit. You'll be influenced too much.
Yeah.
So that's funny. Good call. So yeah, I mean, just the shit they do in this movie. The goldfish sandwich. The like toad or frog. I don't really know the big difference between them, but the one that ribbits.
I think it's a frog that they have, but I don't know.
Yeah. What's the difference?
Toads are not slimy. I don't know.
We don't know.
Frogs are more like, I mean, they're both amphibians, right? But like for some reason I always think toads are like on dry land. Like they like are, but frogs can go into like bodies of water like lakes and ponds and stuff.
And toads are in like...
And toads are not
yeah,
really.
Fuck
I don't
by
know.
now. Tell us down below what the hell's the difference. Or we can Google it ourselves. But yeah, they put one in a vise. They put a few other like, you know, they decorate their little murder shack with them, like they're freaking like Christmas lights or something, or they're like hanging them on a string, and
the dog.
They crucify the cat. They cut off the freaking dog's head and put it on a pike, like. So
this, I just want to say, this kind of reminded me of Tin and Tina, but much better. Like it has the same kind of vibe with like the evil twins minus like the ultra religious stuff.
So I do want to say though, with Tin and Tina, I didn't buy that the parents wouldn't be like, because these are adopted kids and they're like, they can just get rid of them. Yeah. Right. And with your own kids, it's a little harder.
Yeah.
But that being said, the only reason I was able to look past the fact that they didn't take him in is because her hubris gets the best of her being a child psychologist. And she's like, you know, where am I going to take him? I'm going to take him to a place and they're going to talk to a child psychologist. I'm already a child psychologist. And then the dad is like, they need a pastor.
Sure.
I already am one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So they the reason that these kids aren't turned in is because both parents think they have the skills to fix their problems.
Right.
So I bought this, even though I still had to be like, dude, but it's that thing where I wish they would have addressed it in the film, where they're like, we should have taken them to we should have taken them somewhere a long time ago. We cannot think that we can solve their problems. We're too close to this.
Well, because that's just it. I think you're exactly right with like why you're able to like kind of they stick around and they stick with the kids for like such a long time. Not only because they are their blood parents, not that adoptive parents can't love their kids as much, but there is a huge difference.
In Tin and Tina, they have them for like a day.
Right, in these movies that we're talking about specifically, but if it is your own kids and, it's like you love them no matter what, like you have unconditional love, but I'm sorry if I had a kid that was like crucifying our pets, there's no way that they would be staying. Like they would be going somewhere to get like help from other people because as you said, even if I was like a psychiatrist or a priest or whatever, it would still be like you can't treat somebody that you know that well and are that like invested in like with like the kind of treatment that they might need because your vision is too clouded by what you maybe think that you can provide to them or like what you're hoping that they're going to be like versus what they like actually are.
Sure. But as I said, I just think that I can fill in those blanks to convince myself of why it didn't happen.
Sure.
Because there's plenty of other situations where I'd be like, there's no way. If this is just Joe Blow, and Jane Doe.
Sure, if they didn't have those jobs.
Hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. It's there. And I will say the same thing I would say about freaking Joe Blow and Jane Doe. Like, it's their freaking fault. Right?
It is.
Like, they should have taken these kids to get them help a long time ago.
The second that they started hurting animals is like the
she should know.
Hugest red flag.
If anybody's gonna know, it's a child psychologist.
Even if you're like, we never abuse them, like there's no like precedent for this or whatever.
Right. They're in denial.
They're in denial.
He's in severe denial.
I think you really hit the nail on the head with like the hubris, especially on her part, because it's like, like she's a psychiatrist. It's literally what she does. Like she wants to fix her kids because. Just like, people become doctors so that they can cure cancer because, they have family members who are sick or whatever. It makes total sense, but they are 100% responsible for where things go.
This is why they moved them there, right? This is in an effort to fix them and to isolate them so that they can't do anything too terrible. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, well, we're gonna give it one last shot, and if this doesn't go well, then we're gonna have to do something else. But it's like when they're crucifying the cat at that point, dude. I mean, even before that, for sure.
With the frog,
the frog. I mean, a frog in a vice, all that stuff. That's wild. But crucifying the family pet.
Yeah.
It's dude.
Yeah, I could not.
Right. And they bring the kids home, even though, like, they address it in the film that, like, the cops made us bring them home after they, like, tied down their friend and were trying to kill him.
I know.
It's like, dude.
It's like it was
those kids should have been tied up.
At
bare minimum. This guy, there is a little, like, an eye-rolly foreshadowing of, like, I'm going to teach you how to make a knot, and I'm going to teach you how to pick a lock. And
I like those things, though. I like that it's like he's... Even though I guess, I don't know why he's
Why would you
how
teach
to pick a lock,
that kid?
That stuff, like, in that context. But again, it's like they're in denial, and they're trying to be like...
I'm going to teach my kid who could grow up to be a serial killer a knot people can't get out of. What?
Yeah, it is a little bit like...
insane.
But yeah, like... when they're at the end, like, I don't know. I was definitely trying to put myself in their shoes because it's like they've been so exhausted. Like, it's taken a toll on their relationship and, like, they've been trying to, like, help their kids as much as possible. So when they finally are at that point where it's like the cops are going to come get them tomorrow, like, in my mind, I'm like, I wouldn't be falling asleep. Like, I would be awake that whole night waiting because... yeah, I mean, like, for what happens in the film, but obviously, we wouldn't have the ending if they just stayed awake. And I think that because they're so exhausted and it is so emotionally tolling, it does make sense that they would kind of just like, they fall asleep in their room and they lock the door, but you taught your serial killer son how to pick a lock, so
yeah. I mean, there's also like, this is like a nothing note, but like the fact that there's like the science versus religion, and the kid that they befriend is named Christian. I just thought that was like purposely done. Like, of all the names they could have picked, because they even replace them with like Christian iconography with these like three wise men, right? That oversaw Jesus's birth.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, the good job on the kids' performance side. I mean, they were pretty eerie when they were eerie, and then like when they're all lovey and happy,
they were like
it's
so
like,
adorable.
oh, they're adorable.
I know. I was like, oh, I want them to be better.
Until they're not.
Then they're not.
Yeah. The dog's head on a pike. I will say, like, the dog's head on the pike is pretty fake looking, but
I still didn't like it.
Sure.
I hate when there's animal death.
Of course, but it's like, come on. And yeah, I mean, it almost could be a choice, an artistic choice of like, people don't like animal death.
Yeah.
We don't want to make it look too realistic, because that would be too much for an audience.
I mean, the cat sucked too, honestly, because I was just like, and the frog, all of it.
Sure.
I hate it, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was artistic choice.
So we're kind of unclear. I mean, we got the implication here, but like, they drugged the soup they put in front of them, but we never saw them eat it, so they like knocked him out. They knocked the dad out, basically, right? They hit him over the head while he was sleeping, then tied him up, and then
it must have hit her too.
Because when he fell down the stairs,
yeah.
I was just like, oh, he had a concussion.
That's what I
which
thought,
I would have much preferred. Like, she runs over there and he's like, oh, like he fell down the stairs, he had a concussion. Because like 2 seconds before that, she's like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm just, I have a headache or whatever. And then he falls down the stairs, like, he has a fucking concussion. Right. He passed out.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then she comes back and the kids are gone, and then they attack her from behind. Very, very simple, right? But for them to be like, you drugged us, right? And it's like, but we didn't eat. They put the soup in front of you, but there's no way they're eating it. So did the mom get knocked out? I didn't think she did.
I mean, I think that they must have in order to tie them up, because the kids aren't going to overpower either of them.
So they knocked them out, then fed them drugs?
I know. I was confused.
While they were knocked out to knock them out? But drugs hit you fast.
No, the drugs weren't to knock them out. So they set this up earlier in the film, and I knew that it was going to be like the parents are going to get drugged, because she was like, if you take more than one, you go into like a waking coma.
Right.
So I thought that they were trying to do that because they wanted them to be like aware but paralyzed when they were like torturing them. But then at the very end, they're tied down on the table, but they're moving around. They're not in a coma. Like, they're very much like animate, like both of them are. So I'm definitely confused about the drugging and like when and how it happened specifically. And also why it happened, because like, yeah, they could have just been hitting them on the head with the bat to knock them out and to make them like, dizzy and everything.
Okay, if you crush up drugs and you put them into food, they're insanely fast acting, right? Because drugs have like time release and they have this and that. But when you grind them up and you powder them and you put them into a system, they are very, very quickly acting. So if they were to have taken too much and be put into this coma or whatever, from the point where she gets up and runs through and goes over here and does all this stuff, there's no way she was force-fed soup before she woke up, then got herself free from getting down on the chair, ran around the house, did this, did that, got back to the husband, tied them up.
Yeah.
Then he goes upstairs, he falls down. By that point, you're talking 20, 30 minutes has passed. There's no way the drugs have taken that long to work. I'm sorry, there's no way, not ground up like that, not in the dose in which they would have been giving them. It just doesn't make any sense. So I don't get that at all. What would have made sense to me instead is, except for why the hell did they have dinner together, but like they have like one last meal together. Sure. Let's try to have one last meal as a family or whatever. And then they, pass out at the table and then they wake up and they're tied.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, what'd you do to us? And, they see the drugs on the table or whatever. And you drugged us, right? Yeah. That would make way more sense. But it's like a waking coma. They wouldn't wake up. So then you wouldn't have the climatic finish. Yeah. So like the drug thing, I don't think they knew what to do with it exactly. So they kind of just throw it in there like, there's soup on the table and they'll pass out and, it just figure itself out. It didn't. It just doesn't make sense. So that to me is just wonky. Yeah. And I think is just kind of like you're supposed to accept it, but I ain't gonna accept it.
Yeah, I agree. I like the idea that they would drug them, but I would have done it. I do think it should have been done in a little bit of a different way. Because like as I was saying, having them be paralyzed while like the kids are torturing them or something would have been really messed up and would have been cool to see. But as it's used, it's a little... it's confusing.
What would have worked, do everything exactly the same. Get the soup off the table. Have everything play out the exact same way, except for when he falls down the stairs, it's over the coma, from the concussion. As I already stated, she comes back, the kids are missing. They turn around, they hit her again. She goes down, they wake up. And they're tied to the chairs again. And then the kids start force feeding them the drugs. And then they become paralyzed. They put them up on the table and they're like cutting into them. And then the kids are like getting close-ups on their faces. And they like, you can see like they're kind of sitting there. But then their eyes are like tearing water because like they can't move, but they can feel it.
Yeah.
Right? That would make more sense. That would play exactly the same way. Have the exact same impact. Exact same ending. Everything would be exactly the same except for it would make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there you go. Mm-hmm. See? I tell you. Just give me the call. I'll look over the script, give you the approval. Be like, change this one little thing, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Anyways. All right. Anything more?
No.
All right. Found Footage Friday Part 2 has come to an end.
Yeah.
Don't pussify your kids. Tell them a range of stories. Happy endings, bad endings, mixture of both. Don't give them a trophy unless they fucking win.
Don't enable your kids to become serial killers.
That too. If they got a problem, they crucify your cat, put your dog's head on a pike, take them somewhere.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to end up dead.
Yep.
Don't eat the soup. Bye.